Hello. The good news is in a short moment, I will have my second screen being shared so you can see my presentation. Um, so Africa is such an interesting continent. I'm sorry if my eyes aren't with you. I'm just giving some permission for screen sharing. Africa that's the most interesting for me is that Africa is a continent of infinite possibility. And the reason is because we're just so good at solving our problems, and our problems are many and manifest. And if you can see this slide presentation, I don't know if it's coming through. There we go. And we're away. So innovation is better in Africa because of one very simple problem, which is that we have no, we just don't have the kind of resources that most people expect us to have. Is everyone seeing my full screen? I'm unfortunately not able to see because of the two monitors. But mobile has profoundly changed everything. And what's interesting about it is just that there was a time where the computer was the center of our universe and the center of where most of us did our gaming or our communication or anything. And now it's all moved to mobile phones. And part of the reason for that is success is that they are ideal for the environment we live in. They self-charge, you don't need electricity, and they operate using wireless spectrum. So they are ideal for the circumstances we find ourselves in Africa, but also the same kind of circumstances people will find themselves in around the world. And it's shown how our economies have grown. Now, this was in 2010, this slide, 6 of the 10 fastest growing economies in the world were in Africa. How do we know that's true? The Economist told us. But also the current situation is that 2 out of those 6 are still African countries, and we're still growing really quickly. Part of the success of Africa as a hub has been the fact that there are all of these incubators and co-working hubs. iHub in Kenya, CC Hub in Nigeria. They are very famous workspaces that people have used to be able to sit down, young developers, and there's a camaraderie with young game developers or young app developers that they all work together. Of course, a lot has significantly changed since COVID came along. That's what COVID looks like under an electron microscope, by the way. It's almost beautiful. But I suppose the presentation could have been called How Innovation is Better and How COVID has Changed Everything, because it has. I don't know that it's changed that much for us geeks, right? I mean, we still wear t-shirts. We still work from home where we can. Technology journalists and programmers have always worked from home. It's not a new business model. But for the rest of the world, it is. Because all of a sudden, the mobile device is again the only device if you're not going into work and you don't own such a thing. And I think the best quote that summed up the profound change that society went through in the COVID period was this this one from the New York Times. There was a doctor in London, a GP, and his quotes, as you see, we've basically gone through 10 years of change in 1 week. That's really quite true, because we've gone through such profound changes that business models are just being thrown out and rewritten as it happens. There's some fundamentals that stay the same, but it's quite interesting because these new business models are probably the ones that are going to predominate for the next 10 or 20 or 30 years. Who knows? Rarely are the kings of one era the kings of another. You know, when there's a coup or the king is killed, the new king is usually, somewhat different. So we need to think about that in technology terms. And this change is inevitable, and it happens all the time. I apologize for being so congested. I have terrible hay fever every September. And part of the problem with shifting to new business models is just that we're reluctant. We take our time. We like the technology that we have. And I remember having this conversation once about disruption. And 702 had called me. It was about 2010. 702 called me and asked me to talk about disruption. And I was talking about it, and I realized that a very good example I'd had was a trip to my optometrist. And I'm sure a lot of you other geeks also have lifelong association with optometrists. And in the meeting, my optometrist said to me, I got one of those SMSs. I haven't seen you for 5 years. Come on in, tell me how your eyes are. And she said to me, those are very nice glasses. And I said, yes, thank you very much. They're from a place called Warby Parker. And Warby Parker, as everybody knows, has become the Netflix of glasses. It's fantastic. And I said to her, I have to be honest, I'm never going to buy glasses from you again. And it's because my mother said, always tell the truth no matter what. So I decided I would tell her the truth. And she said, why? And I said, well, I buy these online. I try them on online. I upload my prescription as a PDF, and they cost literally, at the time, they cost $100, which at the time was 750 Rand. That was definitely in 2010. And I said to her, my last pair of glasses cost me 5,000 Rand. Why would I buy a new pair? And her answers were, we come into the store, we help you fit your glasses, we make sure they look good. When you do that, they don't fall down. And in the end, I think what I realized was that she was like a horse-drawn carriage salesman. She had her hammer, and her hammer only could hit nails. So she just kept giving me the same thing. And she'd say, look at this year's model. It's got such great brass fittings. And I said to her, but I'm a hipster. I want my Model T Ford, or my Tesla. And she kept saying, but look at the lovely leather. And that's kind of the problem, right? When you're trapped in a way of doing things, you can't see that the horse-drawn carriage is any different from the automobile. I mean, I'm using a Tesla because, who doesn't want a Tesla? And it's that change that people struggle with, because it's brand new. Many people listening to this are probably in their 20s or under 30. It's much easier to change stuff in your 20s than it is any other time of your life. You're much more adaptable. I mean, who thinks we're going to be driving? Uber thinks we're going to be flying everywhere. This is a concept for an aerial taxi. I went to a big conference in Washington last year, and there were 6 or 7 manufacturers who've built prototypes of what they think their helicopter aerial taxis will work. They'll have smaller rotor blades. They won't be as powerful, or so they'll have like 4 or 6 instead of 1. It won't have the same whine as a helicopter. You'll land on the roof and off you go. I mean, that's not that far away. I mean, at the same time, Uber announced you could fly a helicopter from downtown Manhattan to JFK, the airport. It would cost you about, at the time, it was about 3,500 Rand. It was only available to premium customers, but that's the future. Everybody, whether you own a private helicopter or not, if you have the means and the money, you could fly a helicopter. And that's kind of how things are starting to go. I mean, we've come a long way since this was the first computer, haven't we? I mean, look at that handmade wooden piece of amazing technology, handmade by Steve Wozniak and maybe a little bit by Steve Jobs. And we've gone from those being the portable computers of the day. I have one of those original Macintoshes. Actually, I've got 2. And the guy on the right could probably teach Eskom something about load balancing, couldn't he? But we've gone from a rather clunky situation to the smartphone of today looks like this. And they are powerful computers. Samsung, as you can see in the middle, they launched their new Note 20 devices with Fortnite loaded, and we've been playing with Stuff. Stuff has a gaming division called Stuff Plays, and Marseille Bester and Brad Lang are Stuff Plays journalists. We're playing against each other, and the experience is fantastic. That to many to many people will be their experience of gaming. Certainly in Africa, most people are going to experience gaming or the internet or working or communicating all via the internet. And part of the reason that's possible is because of the cloud. You know, we when you don't have to move big chunks of data around, and you can keep it up in the cloud, and you can pull it down to your computer whenever you need it or transfer it. It not only changes the way we work, but the way we do things. You know, Microsoft, you know, they're a huge gaming organization, and they have their own data centers in South Africa. Now, these are vast, massive operations with lots of servers, lots of air conditioning, and lots of power in country. So there's one in Cape Town, one in Joburg, and they're planning to put more in Africa. What does that mean? Well, it means if you're going to play any of the Microsoft games or the Xbox games, you can do them on your mobile phone through a local server. Doesn't have to route the data through Germany or India over to America. It's right here in country, and there's some advantages to that, not least of which for gaming is the low latency. So whenever we talk about Africa, you'll hear people always say, Africa's the dark continent. Well, talking about Africa, generally most people put up this beautiful map of NASA from space. Sorry, of Earth from space, taken by NASA, and you can see it. You can see that Africa has very little electricity. But I don't think this is a map of anything more than innovation, because if you want to work out where the innovation is, just look where there's no electricity, because when you've got no electricity, all you worry about is how to get electricity. When you've got no electricity, that's what you worry about. When you've got electricity, what do? You watch television or you play Pokemon Go. So this is a map of innovation, and all of those places you don't see lots of electricity. Believe me, that's where people are working on clever ways to get electricity. Solar is a brilliant idea for Africa, and I'd like to see much more adoption of that. And I think we're going to see it. I mean, towards the end of the Jacob Zuma years, we were talking about nuclear power from Russia. Well, we don't need nuclear power. We've got a solar reactor in the sky beaming down energy to us all the time. Plants use it to grow and make oxygen. The planet uses it, so it's humans. Why don't we use it for solar power? And it's getting there. The interesting thing is that Moore's law applies to solar panels and solar technology as much as it does to processors. Every 2 years, it gets twice as powerful with half as much and costs half as much. So that's what we're starting to see, really great innovation. And it's places I mentioned, like the co-creation hub in Nigeria. That is one of the hotspots of the kind of work people are doing. Be the one to happen to life. I love this. I walked out of the door of the CC hub, and that's what was displayed on the other side. And I think that's the kind of attitude that typifies people in Africa. We have real problems. The only people who are going to solve those problems are us. We can't ask anyone for help. And this kind of innovation out of necessity, this innovation out of no other source of help has created frugal innovation, but it's created amazing solutions. M-Pesa, of course, is one that we've all heard about, and that's what this guy was my very first slide. And one of the new ones coming from South Africa's Bank Zero. I mean, it's a bank that will have no charges, we hear, and will be very app-based. It'll be like working with WhatsApp, we're told. We haven't seen it yet, but it's really quite something. And it's a far way we've come from this place. This is a hand axe, and it's the oldest piece of equipment in the British Museum. It's the oldest thing in the British Museum, and you can see, you hold it like that with the axe. You can bash with it. You can use the sharp edge to cut with it, and it was this tool that, in many ways, along with our oppositional thumbs, our splayed pelvises, that really gave humanity the great advantage, because it allowed us to kill animals and eat meat. And that bonanza of extra calories is what allowed us to grow our forebrain, which basically gave us everything we have: lights, electricity, computers, Fortnite. And this, in combination with learning to make a fire, allowed us to digest the food, because we don't have the teeth, we don't have the intestines. But by cooking it, we'd pre-digest the protein structure and make things fall apart. And this is just the first example of Africa solving problems for itself, finding a way to overcome the problem, and off we go. And we're just a remarkable species of creatures, us humans, but also in the circumstances we are in South Africa. You know, we've epitomized that, a boermaka plan. You know, as embarrassing as it is, we did create amazing armored vehicles through Denel that the American military uses in Afghanistan, amongst other places. Our isolation during the apartheid years gave us Sasol, who are not doing very well financially now, but they have very incredible market-leading technology, turning coal, which we have lots of, into oil and gas, which we don't have. So that's just part of how we, you know, in South Africa have done that boermaka plan thing. And it's very true of the whole of the continent. In fact, the way we use technology has changed so significantly that we've had to redraw Maslow's hierarchy of needs, to the point where accommodation is no longer as important as shelter, is no longer as important as Wi-Fi. As long as we got Wi-Fi, everything's fine, you know, up to the point where self-actualization is a WordPress or a Medium blog. So welcome to the future. Welcome to Africa. Thank you. So that is the essence of what I wanted to say to people, that we are a remarkable company. We are a remarkable country, and I think we have done amazing things, and we're a remarkable continent. You know, we are brilliant at solving problems, be it, you know, how to make a hand axe and to eat animals, and we're also really good at coming up with clever technology solutions. So that's pretty much it. We are a remarkable continent. People tend to look down on Africa. I do not. I don't truck with Afro-pessimism in any way. I think we are pretty remarkable at solving real problems. And funny enough, those real problems are the same problems everybody else has in the world. So when we solve them for ourselves, we solve them for everybody. Thank you very much.